Here now is White House economic advisor Larry Kudlow. And Larry, I know your time is precious. I want to focus on what's in the future, what's coming down the pike. Let me ask you, originally you guys had said that you felt like we might see a recovery in the third quarter. Do you still feel confident about that timing?
Well, I do. I mean, one thing that's so important, all the phases that we're going through and all the guidelines are data dependent. All right, and then you get into best practices for testing and so on. But I will say this, the rate of new cases, Melissa, which is really a very important indicator, the rate of new cases has dropped down now to 3%. Maybe a month ago, it was over 40%. And that's a terrific leading indicator. So I say that because if the data show it, and if the states abide by the guidelines, which are a roadmap for reopening, we should see quite a lot of reopening in the next few weeks, maybe before May 1st, and certainly May will be a transition month. And then it's not going to happen overnight, but if you're talking third quarter, July, August, September, I think we will see positive economic growth. Or let me just say this, I'm an optimist, you know that. I am hopeful that we can get there. It may be more of a prayer, but I'm still very hopeful because I think all this mitigation work that's been done and the advances in testing and therapies is having a very positive impact. It looks like, and you know, we should really be positive about this and hopeful. It looks like the case rate has really dropped sharply and probably more to come.
Okay. I know you're a mustard seeds kind of guy. That's why I smile when you say that you're hopeful. You are always a very positive person. I know. God bless you. Let me ask you, so the conversation in economic circles is about the idea that if there are no customers and everyone stops paying everyone, if there aren't customers, so then the business doesn't pay the rent, so then the landlord doesn't pay the mortgage to the bank, it kind of all goes back to the bank. And the recourse that the big banks have is to foreclose. So the logical conclusion of that is, you know, the big banks end up owning every house, every airplane, every business, every hotel. That doesn't work because, you know, then there are no customers. Have there been any conversations, you know, when they talk about Treasury Secretary Mnuchin or yourself talking to Jamie Dimon or others, have there been any conversations about where is this headed? You know, if everybody stops paying at once, are there going to be a wave of foreclosures? Is there some sort of forbearance? How do you see that playing out?
Yeah, you nailed it there, that clause before that last sentence, forbearance. Think that forbearance. Forbearance is a much better word than foreclosure. And I think really, with respect to banks and other lenders, and it almost doesn't matter what industry, the key is forbearance. Forbearance and deferring, okay? Like we're deferring payroll tax holiday. We've deferred income taxes for several months, right? Instead of April 15th, July 15th. We put out notices in the housing area, in the mortgage area, more recently in the mortgage servicing area. Forbearance and deferring for people who are in trouble. Now, let's remember, we're in the rescue part of this economic policy. It's very, very important. A lot of hardships out there, a very brutal economic contraction from the virus. It's not economic driven, it's virus driven, but roughly 175 million people will be getting loans, direct loans, payroll loans, unemployment loans, as I say, deferred student loans and income taxes, 175 million people. So there's ongoing activity. We're just trying to stay afloat and bridge into the next phase of this thing when we get the reopening. And by the way, we will hopefully be shifting to more pro-growth policies at that point.
Yeah, but is there a conversation or would there be one at one point where you see like the Treasury or the Federal Reserve backstopping the big banks or giving them some sort of credit or something along the way because they're the ones that are kind of left holding the bag, you know, and maybe they're not going to earn interest on these payments or something, you know, it all goes back to them. Are there any conversations like this or any banks asking questions like that of Treasury or of you guys?
Look, not that I know of. I mean, we have lots of conversations. The big banks, by the way, have been very cooperative. So have the middle banks and the community banks. By the way, I just want to put a plug in this latest rescue package, the portion for PPP, there's a big set aside for small lenders and community banks. Very important area. Now, this is really, you know, Melissa, this is not about insolvency. This is just a different kind of correction because of the virus. Liquidity issues and cash issues, yes, absolutely. And we're trying to literally float the economy until the point where the virus lets up and we can reopen and begin the process of economic growth. But I don't think insolvency is the issue. And again, coming back, it's become one of my favorite words, forbearance. There's nothing wrong with it. In an emergency, that's what governments are there for, and we give guidance. That doesn't mean everybody's going to follow our guidance, but most have. And I think private companies, not just banks, but all kinds of private companies have had this kind of lenient attitude. They understand what's going on. And so much of this, and this is, I think, a testimony to President Trump, his handling of this emergency. This is a government part, absolutely, but we have relied very heavily on the private sector, on free enterprise to help us get it done. And the free enterprise folks, the actual businesses and private banks, they're doing as good a job as they can. So we will get through this.
Larry? Let me ask you before we run out of time real quick. You mentioned those pro-growth policies. I know you're the king of the V-shaped recovery. What could we look forward to that would facilitate that?
Well, I know we're going to look at a lot of things. The president has already talked about an infrastructure bill. He's talked about a payroll tax holiday. He's talked about restoring full deductions for businesses, meals, entertainment, sports events, things like that. We're looking at a wave of deregulation. We're probably going to have some pro-growth tax reforms to make sure it pays to work and invest. I mean, don't forget, it seems like a long time ago, but only a few months ago, this economy was roaring. First couple of months of the year, better than 3% growth. And we got there through deregulation and lower tax rates and energy independence and good trade deals. If we got there once through those good policies, let's extend those very same policies. Let's make sure that incentives are not only continuing, but we can enhance and improve upon economic growth incentives. So that's some of the things. I'd like to see some liability protection, liability insurance protection. I don't want small businesses who play by the rules, right? States and cities will tell them what they must do to deal with the threat of the virus, but I don't want a million lawsuits to put them out of business because then they'll never even go into business. So those are the kinds of things that we're looking at.
Yep. God bless you. Larry Kudlow, thank you so much. Good luck to you. I know you guys are working so hard. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, Melissa.
Connell.
Thanks. Appreciate it.